Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be making this incredibly simple but very cute sweater vest. It genuinely is 2 panels of double crochets stitched together, and that's it. It actually looks so cute on, and I love how it turns out, but it's such like a mindless project. You're just doing double crochets. So I love this project so much. I will not be surprised if I end up with like a full wardrobe of these tops because they're so easy to make but very cute. Starting off with our materials, we're using weight for acrylic yarn, scissors, a darning needle, and a 5mm hook. This is a very simple tutorial, but you do need to know how to do foundation double crochets, and single crochets. So if you don't know the stitches yet, make sure to check out my ultimate beginner tutorial because I show how to do them in that. Starting off with our first row, we're going to make a slip knot, put our hook in, and make our first foundation double crochet. So chain 2, yarn over, and go into the side 2 loops of the first chain, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. And we're going to do the same thing again, yarn over, go to the side 2 loops, pull through, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. As you're doing your foundation double crochets, keep in mind that this is not a top that is going in the typical side direction like this, working your way up the top. For this top, we're going to be going from top to bottom, and so the length that you're making this right now is the length you want it to fit from the top to the bottom. So if you're curious about the sizing I did 35 stitches, and then I ended up doing 20 rows for each panel of those 35 stitches. But you can totally adjust this to you. On me, this is a little bit cropped, but if you want it to be full length, you can make it longer. If you want it to be more cropped, you can make it shorter. Just make sure that you're holding it up to yourself and making sure that it will cover everything you want it to, so it doesn't end up too short or too long. So I have 2 foundation double crochets, and I'm going to do 33 more. Okay, so I just finished my last stitch. I'm going to chain 2, turn my work, and start my double crochets. So for this, I'm going to skip crocheting right where that chain is, and I'm going to crochet into the next stitch, and I'm going to do these crochets all the way to the end, and I'm going to crochet into the chain. This way it's a little bit more even, and since these edges are going to be at the top and bottom, I want them to be very even and not have any areas where it feels like it's like dipping in or dipping out. And so at the end of the row, chaining 2 to start my next row, and repeating that exact same thing. And so this is where the top is so simple. You're just going to repeat rows of double crochets, nothing changing, for however wide you need it to be. So remember that the top is working this way, so like theoretically from like your right side to your left side or the opposite, and it's the same on the back as well. So if that makes complete sense to you and you just want to come back when it's time to stitch together, feel free to do that. Or if that doesn't make sense, I'm going to show one more row, and then I will come back when I finish this panel and I'll show you how to start the next panel, just to make sure that it's all clear for anyone who's a little bit more of a beginner. So again, I chain 2 at the beginning of this row, skipping my first spot to double crochet into and double crocheting into the next one, and just doing double crochets the entire row. And so coming up to my end, I'm going into every stitch with a double crochet, And then I'm also going to go into my chain with the double crochet. This is where I'm going to leave you, and I will come back as I'm finishing this up so that you know how to end off your work, and then again I will repeat how to start your next panel. Okay, I'm coming up to the end of my last row. You might notice these two are two different colors. I did not realize that this yarn was from two different dye lots, so please ignore that. But you're just going to do your last double crochets. One into the chain, chain one, and cut off your work. And just making sure before you move on that when you hold it up, it stretches across and a little bit to the side. So it doesn't need to go all the way around to reach the back, because your second panel is gonna match on the other side, but you just want to go like maybe 1 or 2 rows on the side of you. Just make sure it'll fit, and it is a little bit stretchy, so it probably will fit anyway, but just make sure before you move on. And then you can just set aside your first panel, because now it is time to start the second panel. So you're going to start off with the slip knot, put your hook in, chain 2, and make our first foundation double crochet. Yarning over, going through the side 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Then you're going to yarn over, go through the next 2 loops, pull through, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. And again, I'm going to be doing 35 of these, but your number might be different from mine. Just make sure that you are matching whatever number you did on the other side. So if you haven't been counting, go back, count the number of stitches you have per row, and then just copy that for this first row, and then you can go back to not counting. And so now I finished my 35 stitches, so I'm going to chain 2, enter my work, double crochet into the second stitch, and double crochet the entire row. And you're just going to keep repeating this until you have finished your second panel. So again, if you haven't counted how many rows of these stitches that you did on the other panel, count that real quick, and just so you can keep track, so that you do the same number in this panel. But otherwise, just do your double crochets in every single stitch for this panel until it reaches the same size that your other panel was. Okay, I just finished my second panel, so I'm going to chain 1 and cut off my work and then pull through. And so our next step is to line up the panels. And again, you want the rows to be going from top to bottom, not from side to side, because that's the way that we did the sizing for it. And so what I would recommend is that you stitch the top part together first. If you really wanted to, you could stitch the bottom part first to do like the armhole. But my only caution about that is if you do this part first, you can put it over your head and measure out exactly where you need the sleeve to be in order for it to fit. Whereas if you try and do the sleeve first, you can't really put it over your head properly, because this part's just gonna like fall off because it's not stitched together. So I would highly recommend that you do the top part first. So basically on this one, I only have a small area stitched together, if you can see, because when it's on, this part still lays like across your chest and your back, like in the right area. But by only having it stitched together here, you don't have to worry about it like fitting over your head or about it like being stitched together too close to your neck. I would also kind of recommend only doing a little bit of stitches, and you can always add more stitches to make it even closer, But the one mistake that people will often make is that they make it like here because they're like, oh, like this is how a normal shirt would look with like the amount of space you would have for your head. But even though this is stretchy, it's not stretchy like a fabric would be, so that is definitely not going to fit over your head unless you're making this like for a kid. So again, I recommend just doing a few stitches on the side. I think I have 5 on each side for this one, but obviously it depends on the size you're making it. So if your top is wider, you could do like a little bit more stitches, but again, you can start doing these stitches on both sides and then just like leave extra yarn, do the other side, not cut it off, and then try it on so that you can keep adding more or removing more if you need it to. So basically I'll show you that even though I know that I'm gonna do my 5 stitches. So what we're gonna do is go through this top corner here and tie on our yarn. And I'm going to tie it on with a double knot instead of just once. Then you're going to put your hook through and get the yarn. Then over here, if you can see, the edge is not like a clean edge in the same way that this is, but you're still going to want to try to get 1 loop from each panel because otherwise the seam is going to feel pretty bulky when you're wearing it. So I'm going to try and get 1 from the front, 1 from the back, and make a single crochet, 1 from the front, 1 from the back. That's my second one. 3, 4, and 5. What I'm going to do is leave it like this, pull it through so that there's a little bit of extra yarn here, and then I'm going to cut it like right here because this would give me enough room to add like a few more stitches if I needed it. And then we're going to go to the other corner and do the exact same thing, putting your hook through and tying your yarn on. Again, I like to knot it twice, and then pulling through and grabbing your yarn. And then I'm doing 5 single crochets, getting 1 loop from each side. 1, 2, and 5. And so now what I would do is I would try this on and see whether 1, it fits over my head, and 2, if it does fit over my head, if I want it to be any closer. But since I already know that this is the amount I want, I'm going to do a 1 more, getting 1 loop again, but this time we're going to slip stitch and then chain 1 and cut off the work, pull through, and then on the other side, again, you would be doing this after trying it on and making sure it fits, and if it doesn't fit, adjusting it by adding stitches or removing stitches. After you've done that, then you're going to do this extra 1 slip stitch and then chain 1, and I am going to cut this off because this end is pretty long, and pull through. And so now your top section is done, and again, you are going to want to try it on one more time to test out how big you want your armholes to be. So I have mine fitting pretty close under my arm because I want to be able to wear this like without having like a tank top or something under it showing. But I'm just gonna count really quick how many stitches that was on this one. Okay, so I have 20 stitches, and so what I'm gonna do is go in my corner and tie on my yarn with a double knot, and then I'm going to go through and grab my yarn. But this time it is going to be way easier to only get 1 loop from each side because we have very clear loops. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab the one that's closest to you and then grab the one that's furthest from you and single crochet, and then in your next stitch closest to you, furthest from you, single crochet. And I'm going to do this until I reach 19 because my last one is going to be a slip stitch. And then in my last stitch, I'm going to make a slip stitch, still going into one loop, and then chain one and cut off my work. If you want to be extra sure before you actually cut off your work, you can try it on again and just make sure your arm fits through here. And then we're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. So going in the bottom corner, tying on your yarn, putting your yarn through, and then starting with my first single crochet. And then at the end here, feel free to try it on one more time, just making sure it fits through both arms, or you can just go ahead and slip stitch because you did check it after your other arm, and then chain one and cut off your work. And pull it through. And so now we are done. All we have to do is weave in our ends. And so what you're gonna do is lay the yarn over your needle, pinch it and slide it off, and then wiggle it through. And that is the easiest way to get it through. And then you're going to want to go through the sides of the stitches into the actual stitches, out the sides again, and then you can cut it off. And you're just going to repeat that for all your other ends. Okay, now that I've finished weaving in my ends, the actual last step is to turn it inside out, because these seams aren't like huge because it's single crochets, but when you turn it inside out, it's much more clean looking and it doesn't really look like there's an actual seam there. And so yeah, now we are completely done. Technically, if you wanted to make this a sweater instead of a sweater vest, you could just like add sleeves here. You would just tie your yarn on, probably like chain two, and then double crochet into every stitch in the armhole, and then slip stitch into the beginning of the row, so like into your chains, and just do that until it reaches the length you want the sleeve to be. But if you make one of these, please make sure to tag me because I would love to see it, especially if you make it a sweater, because I'm very curious to see how it'll look. If you have any questions, make sure to let me know down below and I will do my best to help. Make sure to check out my Depop for crochet stuff I'm selling. And otherwise, yeah, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye! Hello? How did that happen? That is so weird. Like I've ever had that happen before. Not my stomach growling.